What comes to your mind when you think of a casual game? Maybe a Mario game, or maybe a point-and-click adventure? Or if you're anything like me, you imagine the calm bliss of a game like A Little to the Left, or Unpacking, or even Euro Truck Simulator, but we'll get back to that. So what is a casual game, really? Well, Google defines it as
a casual game is a video game targeted at a mass market audience as opposed to a hardcore game which is targeted at obvious gamers. Casual games may exhibit any type of gameplay and genre. They generally involve simple rules, shorter sessions, and require less learned skill.
And then it shows me a picture of mobile games, which, yeah, under normal terms do fall under casual games, but I believe it goes much deeper than that. Now, as you're all hopefully aware, video games have been around for a long time, and they've been in hundreds of different forms, but they all originate from the 1958 award-winning Pong. What? Pong! Once the creator of Pong, I'm not gonna try that, Mr. William, added the essential gameplay updates like adding moon gravity, Pong was officially allowed visitors and testers. To say the least, people were impressed, albeit a bit bored when their hour-long playtests were staring at a few lines and a dot moving back and forth. But then a few decades later, in 1972, the first home video game console hit the shelves. the unforgettable Magnavox Odyssey. And then its more interesting cousin, the NES, or Nintendo Entertainment System, dropped, selling over 2 million units in Japan in its first year alone. And it had games like the Marios and the Zeldas and the Captain Americas. But I can't play these games, they're way too hardcore for me. I can't keep up with this riveting action. And so, casual games were born, with games like Kirby's Adventure, Mario's Open Tournament, and Bubble Bobble taking the mantle. Yeah, I don't know what the fuck is happening there. And gamers are loving it, and sparking Nintendo's next hit console, the NES, to basically do the same thing. Which kept working, because who the fuck knows what the competition was doing at the time? Sonic Pinball, more like Sonic Pin Racing Repair Shop in Dos Hermanas, Spain, because that shit's too fast for me. But then we take a trip to 3D graphics were introduced to the drooling masses, and it was a perfect time for companies to begin pushing a new form of casual game, the party game. With Mario Party and DDR running circles around people's hearts and homes, casual gaming was slowly starting to attract older generations into the wide world of It hit the world, leaving many people without much moolah to go around. So as the 7th generation of consoles rolled around with $300 to $400 price tags, people had only one option to go to. The king of all casual games, the Nintendo Wii. Having the reputation that it does, it has piles upon mountains upon continents worth of games to play, with a whopping 1,640 games officially licensed for the console. It had some stinkers in the list, and usually in a video like this I go on listing those stinkers and talk a little bit about them, but with a pinch of salt I'd say about 80% of the Wii's library is shovelware, which basically bogs down to the Wii's equivalent of a crypto miner disguised as a real video game. But for these games to produce max profit, a majority of them were casual, which began the trend of casual games getting a bad rep for the scammy nature of those $5 products produced by the same company making 57 other games that same year. It was a goldmine for these developers, really coaxing people who didn't understand the low effort put into these games and picking them over other more complex experiences at the time.
And people watch this?
And now that you have a more general understanding of the history of casual games, I'd like to introduce you to what I really wanted to talk about. I know Cookie Clicker may not be the most appeasing example of what I mean, but I believe it's a perfect introduction into the modern genre of casual games. Because, in all honesty, there's not a whole lot to do in this small, limited window. There's a cookie, there's a few menus, and some eye candy in between. And if you just... it begins the addictive cycle that casual games hold, until it looks like this. This is my most played Steam game. Do you see why casual games are successful? Another game which still has an extremely active player base after over a decade is... the one, the only, the Euro Truck Simulator 2! And this fucking game has aged me. I have under 50 hours, but I felt like I've gained a respect for social security since then. Unlike Cookie Clicker, Euro Truck's addictive aspects are much more subtle, and I still can't figure out why it's so addictive. This game is so goddamn boring, but whatever it does, it works, and I'm a firm defender of Euro Truck. And I don't even know why. But back in the day in the early 2010s, there wasn't much to defend, as these kinds of games were few and far between. But in early 2020 came... which left many people house-ridden and in need of a relaxing, simple game to put their mind at ease in the midst of a global apocalypse. And so the renaissance began for the blissful casual games. And games like Unpacking crop into the view of the many people who have fallen for these kind of games, including myself, because Unpacking really just filled my heart with a warm feeling of a life that isn't even mine, or anyone else's for that matter. But it is a life that you can piece together through about 5 sentences and by paying attention to the visual storytelling that the game presents of a fashion designer growing up and moving from house to house. As things get lost or replaced, you'll notice. As people enter and leave her life, you'll notice. As her interest and hobbies change, you'll notice. Without a word being spoken. In reality, Unpacking has some of the best storytelling I've ever seen, despite how limited it is. And not to mention the satisfaction in having everything unpacked and cozy in your brand new home, and a story of an evil, deceiving, foul thing messing with your shit like, come on, I just cleaned that, you motherfucker! The early 2020s has really allowed this underappreciated genre to thrive, as people have needed a relaxing break from reality, now more than ever. And with the success of recent attempts, many more casual games are on their way, and I will be playing every single one. Just please don't play those shitty hentai puzzle games. Okay, bye!